So good afternoon and welcome to our next session. This one is specifically for faculty, and we'll be talking about working with images and how to make them accessible. I'm Sherry Prupis. I'm Director of Teaching and Learning with Technology at the System Office supporting all 23 colleges. And it is my privilege to be Director of the Digital Accessibility Compliance Initiative, which is sponsoring these sessions. We will get out recordings to all of you. And if you ask questions, we will also get out the slides as well as the FAQs. I'm asking that you please put your questions specifically in the Q&A. You'll find the box at the bottom of the screen. For anybody who needs or prefers closed captioning, you'll also find it at the bottom of your screen. You may need to hit more. It says there's a little box to CC. It also says show captions. And like I said, if you don't see it, click the more button and you'll see it there. It is my pleasure to introduce Surbi, who's our accessibility expert. Surbi, to you.
Thank you, Sherry. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to our second session of the accessibility series. It's really great to see you all here for this session. So today we are going to dive into something super important, that is writing effective alternative text, or we also call it as alt text. Now, you might be thinking that it's too technical, like the term alt text, but it's just about describing visuals in a clear and thoughtful way when required to ensure that everyone gets the full experience regardless of how they are accessing the content and if they are using any assistive technology. By end of this session, you will have the tools to make your content more accessible and impactful. Slide 2, please. Before we get too deep into things, let's take a quick look at what we are going to cover today. Here are our 6 main objectives of the session. First, we will start with why image description, or why alt text really matters, especially in academic settings. Then we will look at different types of images, things like charts, diagrams, photos, decorative images, etc. We will also talk about how our strategies for describing them should change depending on the purpose of the image. And next, we will cover some core principles for writing effective alt text, which are simple, actionable steps that will help you write descriptions that are useful, clear, and concise. From there, we will walk through real-time examples, so you will actually see how to apply these in real context. We'll also go over how to add alt text in common tools like Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, etc. So you will know exactly where and how to do this in your own work. And finally, we will share some easy ways to test your content for accessibility, along with helpful resources that you can bookmark for later for sure. And definitely, we have our live demo sessions and followed by the Q&A at the end. So let's get started. Next slide, please. So let's start with the basics here. What is alt text and why it matters so much? Alt text, as I mentioned, it is also a short term used for alternative text, is nothing but a brief description that explains the meaning or purpose of the image. So it's not just about what the image looks like, but what it is communicating. This is especially important for people who cannot see the image. Like it could be that they're using a screen reader, they have any kind of visual impairment, or it could be that they're using any other assistive technology too. And there, alt text helps make sure that they are getting the same information as everyone else. And that is really the core of having alt text. Without having it, we are risking excluding students who are blind, low vision, or neurodiverse, or even who process information differently. So it's not just a best practice, it is also required by the law under WCAG 2.1, the ADA, and Section 508. Section 508. So if we are creating any digital content, it has to be accessible. And I think beyond compliance, good alt text supports all learners. Next slide, please. So let's take a look at this slide. Imagine how a student using screen reader would interpret this image. Without an alternative text, there is no description at all. The screen reader might just say image or graphic, that's it. No context at all, no meaning. And it's not only screen reader users who miss out on information here. Even a student who's viewing this on a phone with maybe images turned off, or someone with a processing disorder who needs written cues misses the information too. And if the image supports any key point, that learning is lost too along with that. Next slide, please. Now let's look at what happens when we include alt text. In this example, we have a labeled diagram of a plant cell, something commonly used in biology classes. So if a student can't see the image, alt text makes a big difference. Instead of image or graphic, this time the screen reader will say label plant cell diagram with key organelles like nucleus, chloroplast, mitochondria, Golgi body, and vacuole. So now the student has access to the same information as everyone else. And that is what the impact of alt text is. It closes the gap. Next slide, please. One of the most common questions we hear is, do I have to write alt text for every single image? The short answer, or the good news, is no. Not every image needs a description at all. What matters is the purpose of the image. So let's look at a few common types, which will help you understand this more. First, we have decorative images. So these are visual that add style or visual interest, but do not actually communicate information. Things like background swirls, borders, or small icons that do not relate to the content. For example, if you have a swirl graphic just to enhance the slide visually, it does not add any information related to the content. So it is completely safe to mark that image as decorative. Next are informative images, which are the most important ones because these are the ones which carry a lot of information. And definitely it needs alt text. So now look at the image on the screen. If you're using that image in a biology lesson to illustrate structure, alt text is definitely very important. So you can include something like model of a DNA double helix structure on a desk. It doesn't have to be too lengthy or detailed, just clear and focus about the purpose and context about the image. It's all about making sure what the message you want to convey through the image. Then we have redundant images. So these are visuals that repeat information that might be there in a textual or written format. For example, if you look at the picture here, along with that, we also have a text that says graduation 2025. Now it could be the heading of an article or anything. So there are two scenarios here which can be done. Either you can completely skip adding the alt text because whatever message about graduation 2025 is mentioned in the image, we already have that information in the heading. Or you can describe the picture generally without including the terms which are already there in the text. Since both image and the heading mentions graduation 2025, there's no need to repeat it in the alt text. So what could be the right text here? A group of diverse students in gowns joyfully throwing their hats in the air. So it is completely optional. It is not a a must-have description for your images, but it is a good to have thing to describe such images as well, based on the content that is being provided. So when there is an image, ask yourself, does the image teach something? Does it support the content? And will someone miss out anything if they do not see it? And if the answer is yes, you definitely need to write the alt text. If not, it's probably safe to skip the alt text, or you can mark it as decorative. Next slide, please. Now that we have talked about which images need alt text, the next question comes is, what do you actually write while writing an alt text? It starts with asking the right questions, like, what is the image showing and why is it there? Is it essential for understanding the content, or it is just there to support? Does it illustrate a process, a concept, or a relationship? And who's your audience? Like, a general education student might need more context than someone majoring in the field, right? So the information from the last slide can also help you understand these questions, like to figure out is whether if the image is decorative, informative, or redundant. So you definitely need to ask these questions while writing an alt text. So let's look at a quick example here. We have an image with a math problem that says, find the area of a triangle. Now, if the image doesn't load, will a student still be able to solve the problem here? Probably not, because the image contains the key information. So a good alt text would be triangle with sides labeled 3, 5, and 7 centimeters. It's short, clear, and gives the student all the information they need to solve the problem. And the main idea here is to be intentional. So one more point, no alt text is right or wrong. It all depends on what message you want to convey through the alt text that you're writing. Once you take a moment to think about what information does the image hold and what the learner needs, writing alt text becomes much, much straightforward and easier. Next slide, please. So now that we have asked the right questions, the next step is actually writing the alt text or description. But what makes alt text effective? What turns a vague or overly worthy description into something clear and useful? To help with that, I would like to use a simple acronym called ACORN. It is not an official or a universally known acronym. It's just a teaching tool designed to make good alt text easier to remember and apply. So here, what it stands for. Starting with A stands for accurate. So focus on what actually is in the image, especially the key information, and skip decorative or artistic details that do not serve the purpose. Next is C for concise. Keep it short to the max 1 or 2 lines, as here for simple images, we are aiming for clarity, not a full description. O is for objective. That means stick to the fact, avoid assumptions, opinions, or even emotional language. Just describe what is visible on the image. R is for relevant. Include only the details that matters for the context. Think about why the image is there and what part of it supports the content. Last, N is for necessary. Include only the detail that supports the learning goal. And ask yourself, what does the student need to know from this image in this specific context? Next slide, please. So far, we have talked about using ACORN to write clear, effective alt text for everyday images, things like photos, diagrams, icons, etc. But what happens when the images are more complex? Things like maps, charts, infographics, and that are packed with data. Take this image as an example. That's a lot to communicate and trying to squeeze all of it into one alt text line, right? The thing is, you don't have to. You don't have to include all the details in the alt text. To handle complex images without overwhelming the alt text, there are simple approaches. First, keep the alt text short and let users know where they can find the more detailed description, like a nearby caption, link description, or it could be a data table as well. The alt text should briefly describe the image and its purpose, not the detailed information. For our example, something like map of US states color-coded by percent of undergraduates graduating within 6 years. Find detailed description below. This is giving a clear information what the image is about without getting into every single detail, and also the information where they can find more information if they want to deep dive into it. Next, make the full details available nearby. Alt text is not the place for every data point, but that information does need to be accessible. This is a very important point. You can include it, as I mentioned earlier, in a caption, text, or table. For example, right below the image, you can write the extended description that you can see on the screen. Also, it is very important to remember one thing here. Any image that presents data or detailed information like chart, graph, map, etc., which holds a lot of information that is required for a learning purpose, that information has to be provided in an accessible text format, such as a table, list, or any other format you want to, but it has to be completely accessible. There, just a summary or a one-liner description will not work. Next is you can also summarize key trends. For example, there are scenarios where just you want to describe the summary. So instead of listing everything, you can highlight the overall trends. And as I said, it completely depends on the context and purpose of the image. So what is the bottom line here? Alt text is not meant to do everything. Its goal is to introduce the image and explain why it matters. The rest, like detailed data or extended description, should be present elsewhere in the way that is easy to find. Next slide, please. Let's shift gears and look at some common mistakes people make when writing alt text and how to avoid them. Take this image for an example, something you would often see in science courses or lab manuals. A vague description like a picture of a microscope might seem fine at first, but it doesn't explain why the image is there or why or how it is supporting the learning. On the other hand, going too far, like a white and black microscope with a silver adjustment knob, blue tinted glass slide, etc., just overwhelms the student with unnecessary details, which does not convey any right meaning. Then there are descriptions that miss the main point, like a microscope used in labs. That's technically true, but it doesn't tell us what the student is meant to take away from this image. Sometimes it could be too jargon heavy. For example, a compound microscope with color illumination. Unless your audience is trained in microscopy, that kind of jargon can be more confusing than helpful. And finally, be careful not to repeat information that is already covered in some or the other way near the image. So a better version would be something like microscope on a lab bench with a prepared slide used by students to observe cell structures. It's clear, concise, and directly tied to learning content. The key is simple here. Good text is all about helping the learner focus on what they need to know and keep it accurate, relevant, and to the point. Next slide, please. One of the most important and often overlooked principles of writing alt text is that it should always match the context in which the image is used. The same image might need completely different description depending on the subject, the learning goal, who the audience is, and many other factors as well. Take this image for an example. The picture stays the same, but how you describe it changes based on what you're teaching. For example, in a biology class, you might say green frog sitting on a leaf, showing its camouflage. Here, the focus is on adaptation and survival, so the description highlights that function. Wherein the same thing in a design class might be frog with bright green color and textured skin. Now, the emphasis here is on visual elements like color, texture, natural patterns, which might be feasible for that subject to describe. Similarly, in a geography lesson, it could be frog on a tropical rainforest leaf. The goal there might be to talk about ecosystems and habitat. So what do we understand here? Alt text is not just about describing what is visible, but it's about supporting the learning that that you want to convey. You're not just telling students what they see, you're guiding them towards what they need to understand. Next slide, please. Now, let's flip it up. It's your turn to try it out. So we've talked through the basics of writing, alt text, and how context matters. So let's put that into practice now. On the next few slides, you will see images. Take a moment to think of an alt text that would fit in that context and purpose. Then on a slide after that, you will see a sample version, and you can definitely compare the alt text that you had thought along with what is visible on the screen. So we might not be able to go over all the responses if you type it, but this is a good practice for you to at least compare the alternative text. So let's dive in with our first example. Next slide, please. We have a chart image as a first practice example. Take a moment to look at the image and think about how you would describe it in an alternative text. Key points, keep it short, maybe 1 to 2 lines. Focus on the type of chart, like what it shows, any key trends, and where can someone get the detailed information. You don't have to include every number or label, just the main takeaway here. Okay, so let's look at the sample answer in the next slide. Next slide, please. Here, the alt text says bar chart showing 2025 enrollment for biology, chemistry, and physics, with biology highest. Find full data in next slide. This works quite well because this is short, clear, and highlights the main point. And remember, the actual data in an accessible format is really important, such as a structured data table. Alt text here is just a quick summary, not a replacement for the detailed data. So now we have
Derby, we
quick.
had a recommendation that the alt text might be simpler and say a bar graph comparing enrollment in science courses in 2025.
Yeah, that's great actually. That's actually great, and it is so, as I mentioned earlier, thank you, Sherry, for that. So no alt text is right or wrong here. It completely depends what you want to convey to the learner. So great, that was a good one. So okay, let's look at few tips for making charts accessible, because these are again very important points. Use high contrast colors so that text and bar stand out, especially for those with low vision or color blindness. It's really important. Second, don't rely on color alone. Add patterns, labels, or symbols to convey meaning. Next, use clear, large fonts to help readability on all devices. Include meaningful alt text or written summary nearby if the chart is complex. Make sure charts can be zoomed in without losing clarity or cutting off labels. It is very important if the students are reading the content in multiple devices or a smaller screen. Prefer static charts when possible, and if the charts are interactive, make sure they are keyboard accessible. Choose chart types and labels that are simple and focused on the key message. So what's the bottom line here? When using charts, think beyond visuals, think accessibly, and ask yourself, can a screen reader user understand this image? Can they access the data? Is the message clear even without a color? And if you get all right, then we are going in the right direction. Let's move on to next example. Next slide, please. Take a look at this next example and think about what alt text you would write for it. You can jot it down or just keep it in mind, and we can look at the sample text in the next slide. Next slide, please. So here we have the sample alt text. Sorry. Partial periodic tables showing elements hydrogen through neon with electron shell diagrams for each. Find the extended description below. This again works well because it quickly explains what the image is. A section of the periodic table that identifies which elements are shown and highlights what the image demonstrates. Plus, it also tells where to find the full description. As I mentioned earlier, since this image contains a lot of detailed information, like element names, symbols, atomic numbers, electronic configurations, it cannot be included at once in the alt text, and that is where you can see the extended description that is provided on the slide. Through this extended description, screen reader users will get the full learning content without overwhelming the alt text at all. And here are some quick tips for complex images. Keep alt text brief and focused on what the image is and its purpose. Use extended description for detailed or layered content. Always ask what the student should learn from this, and make sure that information is accessible in text or any other format. Now, let's move on with the next example.
Survey, when they write the extended description, where do they physically put it?
So if you can see here, you can put it right below the image as a paragraph. You can create a separate page, mark it as a link. You can create it as a different slide. No matter wherever it is leading to, you have to make sure that you provide that particular description in the alt text, so that when a student is reading the text, alt text that is mentioned in the image, they know where they can find the extended description. So it need not be in the same page or in the same document. It could be an attachment for which you need to apply, provide them the source. Can I go ahead? Okay. Next slide, please. Now take a look at this one and think of an appropriate alt text. I'll take a couple of seconds before moving to the next slide. Okay, next slide, please. Let's see the text here now. The sample alt text for the plant cell image could be microscopic image of plant cells with label pointing to nucleus, vacuole, cell wall, and cell membrane. Find extended detail below. So again, it is very clear and simple alternative text that tells us what the image is, and it highlights the key labeled structures without getting lost into many details. Because this, again, is an educational image showing specific parts that students need to recognize, we definitely provide an extended description or an accessible format, I would say, for more content. You can see the extended description, though, that is provided here in the slide. So why is this extended description so important? For science visuals like this, students need to know what they are looking at, what the parts are called, and how to spot them. So providing this information in text ensures that they are included in all the learning content, and they are not missing on any key information. So let's keep going now, and let's see our next example. Next slide, please. What about this one? What do you think could be the best alt text? I would not take much time on this because we have a couple of more examples as well. So let's move to the sample alt text. Next slide, please. So here it could be diagram showing a liver with effort, load, and fulcrum below of a balance scaled with masses m1 and m2 at distances a and b, illustrating the equation m1 times a equals M2 times B. Find extended description below. So now this is a great example of concise and purposeful alt text, I would say. It clearly explains what the image shows, a lever and a balance scale. Also, what it is teaching, that is the physics principle of moments, using that key equation. Because the image, again, includes arrows, labels, and a detailed explanation, we have provided an extended description as well. I would like to mention it again here, why this matter is because these kind of diagrams carry a lot of instructional value. So it's really important to provide both a quick alt text for easy screen reader use, like just a glance, and a detailed description to deliver the full details. Let's quickly move on to our next example. Next slide, please. Now, look at this one. What do you think? What could be the best alt text for this? Okay, let's quickly jump to the sample. Next slide, please. So here it is a map of Earth's tectonic plates with boundaries and fault lines clearly shown and labeled. Extended description below. This is another great example of clear and concise alt text because it tells us what the image is, that is a map, and highlights the key features a student needs to know, that is tectonic plates, boundaries, and fault lines. Again, because this is a detailed scientific diagram, there's a lot more information that is presented visually, like color coding, types of boundaries, and specific plate names. We have this along with an extended description, which you can see on the slide. So this extended description will ensure that the student can understand all the minute details which a person or any other student can see visually. Let's move to our next example. Next slide, please. What do you think about this one? It could be a little confusing, but give it a try. Like, what could be the best alternative text for this? Without wasting much time, I'll quickly jump to the sample text. Next slide, please. So let's break down the alt text for the graph we just looked at. Graph of a linear equation, y plus 2x equals 3, showing a green line intersecting the x-axis at 3 by 2, comma 0 in brackets. These marked A and B respectively. Find.
Survey, will you turn off your video, please? We're having just a little difficulty with your audio.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, it's done. So sorry for that.
No,
Am
that's
I
okay.
audible
Much
now?
better. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So the alt text that you see on the screen, it is quite short and functional. It tells us what the image shows is a graph of a map equation, and the key takeaway where the line crosses the axis at points A and B. Again, but for students using screen readers, that might not be enough, and it is definitely required to provide an extended accessible version. One of the sample you can see on the screen as well. Okay, so let's quickly move to the next example. Next slide, please. This one comes from an assessment. You will see an image with a simple question Identify the architectural style. This type of question is quite common in art history, design, or cultural studies, and it relies completely on visual analysis. Now, take a moment to think, what kind of description would make it accessible without providing the answer? Let's look at the sample text. Next slide, please. In an assessment setting, how we write alt text really matters a lot. Some approaches clearly don't work at all. For example, picture of a building. It is far too vague and doesn't give the student any useful information at all. On the other hand, photograph of a pantheon in Rome is accurate, but it can give away the answer, which does not serve the purpose of the question. So in assessment, alt text should never reveal the answers. Instead, it should describe the image in a way that allows student to analyze it and respond to it independently. A better example could be photograph of a large stone building with a dome and a prominent portico of Corinthian columns. A triangular pediment sits atop the columns. Yeah, I think that's it. This version works well because it points out key architectural features, gives enough visual details for the student to make an informed judgment, and avoids identifying the building directly. And that's the balance to aim for, especially in assessment alt text. That is to support understanding without doing the work for the learner. So when writing alt text for test or quiz images, it helps to ask yourself, is this image assessing knowledge or just supporting it? If it is assessing, the alt text should provide access while still letting the student interpret and answer on their own. Let's move on to our final example. So yeah, let's look at it. Next slide, please. Here's another quiz style image. As you look at it, think about what the image is meant to assess, which visual details are actually important, and how you might describe it in a way that gives access without giving away the answers. Okay, let's check the sample now. Next slide, please. The question here was straightforward. Identify the intersection point. Now let's compare two versions of the alt text, starting with what doesn't work and then the other one. The first one simply says line graph, which is far too vague to understand and gives no useful information at all. The second one says graph showing lines y equals x and y equals 10, x intersecting at point 5, 5 in brackets, which goes too far by giving away the answers directly. So what could be a better options? Maybe graph with two lines, y equals x, rising diagonal, and y equals 10, x falling diagonal, intersecting at one point. So this version does not reveal the answer, and it clearly describes what is in the image. That is the two lines, their directions, while leaving enough for the student to interpret the answer on their own. It gives access without giving answers, and that is the key when images are used in assessments. Make sure you describe what is essential, avoid spoilers, and make sure the student can still demonstrate their understanding without seeing the image. Next slide, please. Now that we have covered what alt text is and why it matters, let's look at how to add it using the tools you already use. We've included some short video tutorials for common platforms like Word, PowerPoint, Google Docs, etc. in the appendix, which you can always refer to. And as a live demo, we will be taking the live demo by the end of this session before the Q&A. So let's move on to the next slide. Next slide, please. Before we wrap up our session, let's quickly cover how to test your alt text and where to find reliable resources. Most tools like Word, PowerPoint, etc. have built-in accessibility checkers, so make sure to use them. Try a screen reader like JAWS or NVDA in Windows or VoiceOver in iOS to get a sense of how a student might experience the content. Tools like Microsoft Accessibility Checker, Google Alt Text Features, and free browser extensions like Wave or Axe can catch missing descriptions. So make sure to check with that. For official standards, check out WCAG Section 508, ADA, and WCAG 2.1. If you want to explore further, WebAIM's Alt Text Basic and the WCAG 2.1 Quick Reference Guide are excellent for practical resources. This slide is definitely your toolbox, so feel free to bookmark it, use it, and share it with others. Next slide, please. As we wrap up today's session, let's zoom out and return to the bigger picture. Alt text is not just a checkbox, it's about providing access to all the learners. So here are the few key takeaways. Not every image needs alt text. Pure decorative visuals can definitely be skipped. Use the ACORN method. Keep it accurate, concise, objective, relevant, and necessary. For complex visuals, combine brief alt text with extended description nearby. Make sure to provide an accessible format of data-driven images like charts, maps, etc. Always consider the context and your audience. Also, what your students should learn from the image. And don't forget to test your work using accessibility tools, screen readers, or even getting feedback by real-time users. Next slide, please. Thank you, everyone, for joining today's session. And here's a quick look at what upcoming sessions are. Session 3, we will be focusing on video accessibility, captions, transcripts, and making multimedia inclusive. Session 4, we would dive into on-page content accessibility, like headings, links, layout structures, etc. And in session 5, we will tackle PDF and document accessibility, including how to tag content properly. With this, I would like to sign off and hand it over to Nitesh to take you through a walkthrough of the live demo session. Over to you, Nitesh. Thank you.
Thanks, Survi. So I'm going to show how to add alt text into Word document, PowerPoint, and into Google Docs. So I'll start with the Word. So here I have added a image. So depending on the version that you are using of Microsoft Office, uh, the way you will add alt text might differ. So for example, here I'm using latest one, Microsoft Office. So I can go to picture format, and there is an option for alt text. I just click on it and it will give me details. And here also you can see the brief description about what alt text should look like, and then one or two detailed sentences we can add here. And it is giving some suggestion as well about the alt text, what it should be. If it is a decorative image and you want to skip it in the screen reader, you can just click on this box and it will be marked as a decorative. If you are using older version of Microsoft Office, typically it is there in, if you go to format, right click the image, then format picture, and you will see 3 boxes here. And which, if you go to layout on properties, here typically you will see a alt text in the older version of Microsoft Office. Same is the case with Microsoft PowerPoint. You can select the picture, you go to picture format, and you can add the alt text. It's a similar across Microsoft Office suite. And you can mark it as here decorative, or you can add a text here. And if you are using the older version of Microsoft Office, again, you can go to right click, format picture, and it should be in the third one, size and properties, and it should be below text box. If you are doing this in Google Docs, again, I've added one image here. You can select this and just click right click and say alt text, and it will give you a box here where you can add alt text to describe it. And once you type it, it will automatically save. And once you save the document, it's there. So that's the brief demo of how you can add the alt text into your documents. With that, we can go to Q&A. Over to you, Sherry.
I think that most of the questions got answered, but let me go back and look at them. So one of them Survey did talk about, we're trying to figure out how many labels need to be on a picture. We were looking at the cell diagram, and not every piece of the cell had a label. So I think the answer is that what is the purpose of the image? And that's what determines how much labeling or how many labels you need on it. You answered much later on, she did, about the recommendations of using images for exam questions. Thank you, that was really helpful. And then there was a question that I do want you to talk about. Do tables need an alt text?
No, no. Tables are accessible via screen reader, but they should not be used for layouts. They should be used for data, and it should be properly column header marked and properly marked with the right styles and tags. So for a table, we do not need separate format.
Thank you. If we create a document in Word and we do it properly, we do the alt tags, we do the descriptive URLs for links, we do the headings. If we save as PDF, will it keep all the accessibility markers in it?
Most of them, yes. So there are two key factors here: how you convert it into PDF, which we'll definitely be covering in our upcoming session. But
Yes.
to briefly answer that, if you are saving it as a print format, which saves as a PDF, definitely it will not be accessible. But if you use the right version and save it as PDF, which is mostly found in Acrobat Pro versions, it will usually keep all the tags along, but it is always a good thing to have a quick check. And we need to definitely tag. There is an option while saving the document to PDF. We can check that tagging option so that all these styled text are in the same format.
I did not know that. Thank you. Okay, the next group of questions were related to the extended descriptions. Can I put the extended descriptions inside of an appendix? That was the first question. The second one is if I have a second slide with the extended description, will people think it's a new thing, or how will they understand it's the extended description of the one before? So is
So
both. One, can I
uh,
put the extended in an appendix
mhm,
or in a completely different location? And what happens
mhm.
if I just make it in the next slide if I'm using PowerPoints?
Sure. So to answer the first question, yes, you can definitely use it as an appendix. I'll answer the second part of it with along the second question. So the second question was, if you put it in the next slide, how would the student know that it is not a new slide, but the extended description? So no matter what the location is here with regards the extended description, you need to provide that accurate location in the alt text. For example, if the next slide will definitely have a heading or a slide number, right? So you can mention that in the alt text, that extended description in slide number this or slide heading this. If it is in the appendix, the same thing. You just need to be very accurate in mentioning the exact location where the extended description can be found. Even to make it better, what you can do is find the link to extended description below, and you can just provide a link there. By clicking on it, the student can directly land on that particular description. So these are
Yeah,
multiple ways that you can use.
right. And if I use a link, it actually doesn't matter where I've put the extended description because I'll click on it and get to it.
Right. It's just that the
Okay.
link name has to be correctly
Yes.
described.
Okay. And then the last question as we approach the top of the hour is when is it important to describe colors? In the cell diagram, did we need colors? In the frog diagram used colors, but in one of the charts where you were showing the line intersecting the X and Y axis, you had described it as a green line, and then did that matter to say the green? So how do we know when to describe colors and when not to?
So, in any situation like this, the first thing that matters is that thing conveying any information? So that green color, like specifically that was called out for the chart also for people who are colorblind or people who have different difficulty in watching RGB colors, that is red, green, and blue. So it could help them as well. So calling out color is not wrong, but it has to convey some information there. If it is only decorative, then you need not to. But suppose there is a chart that says red, low, green, high. So it is good to give that information in the extended description also, that the lowest one are marked in red and the highest one are marked in green. So that gives the exact information what another student will be able to see.
Okay, thank you so much. I want to thank everybody for participating in today's session on working with images. That was really helpful. A special thank you to our ASL interpreter, Lisa, very appropriate for those of us who are not hearing impaired to have the experience of seeing an ASL interpreter and understanding what it adds for the person who has a hearing disability. So thank you very much. And we will see you on September 30th for our session on videos in your Tech Tip Tuesdays that you're actually getting today on a Wednesday. We will reshare the link if you've not yet signed up. Thank you to Serbi and Nitesh. We'll get the recordings out before the end of the week. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.